Close your eyes and imagine you're at an amusement park. The sounds of the ride's motors, the chatter from the surrounding people, the screams of the people on the rides. There's wonderful smells in the air, a familiar tune playing in the background, and this amazing feeling of magic all around you. You can't help but sing along with the music. It's a small world after all. Disneyland Resort opened in 1955, and it seems like there is nothing more than fun and adventure waiting for us past the gates. Since then, more parks have opened, allowing for more and more people to experience the incredible magic. However, what about the darker, more sinister things we don't usually get to see or hear about? The many deaths and hauntings over the years, the hidden symbolism in the movies, and even Walt's involvement with NASA. Today, we dive deep into the dark world of Disney and expose some of the things that Mickey Mouse and friends have been hiding from us. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole. Welcome back to Infinite Rabbit Hole, everybody. I'm Kenzar, and today we got Disney for you. Introduction to Disney, to be specific. We'll get to that, but until then, let's introduce our hosts. Jeff with the beer and the crackers. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm fat and happy.
Perfect. That's wonderful to hear. And let's bring in Wes next. How you doing, Wes?
I'm doing pretty good.
It's fantastic to hear. And last but not least, Jacob.
That's me, Jacob. I'll be doing a little bit less talking this episode as I smashed the inside of my mouth with a clamp. Note to all the listeners, if you put something under pressure with a clamp, be sure to protect your face just in case the clamp slips off and smashes you in the face, because otherwise you'll bust something open. So, yeah, I'm kind of hurting.
Yeah.
Jake busted lip shill. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anybody got any announcements? Anything y'all want to say before I get going here? I'll let you guys go first.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Not really. Just want to say I'm stoked for the Disney escapades. Good choice.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm wearing the t-shirt today, the Dinosaurs Are Fake t-shirt. You can get it on the Infinite Rabbit Hole store. I am also excited for the Disney thing. The only thing I know about Walt Disney is that he allegedly, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that he was a anti-Semite pedophile scumbag. So I don't know. We'll see if it's more than just that.
We'll get there.
All right, cool.
Before we get going, though, I wanted to show everybody this wicked skateboard that Hush Hush sent me. Shout out to Hush Hush Society.
Dude.
Mike painted that.
Where's mine, Mike?
Yeah, for real, Mike.
Come on,
Making everybody jealous over here because that's a badass skateboard. Look at the little Mothman. It's so cute.
How'd you score that? What did you have to do?
I just joined their live show and they put my name in a raffle pot.
Oh, okay.
That's how I won that.
Dang.
Pretty lucky.
But yeah, shout out to them. Thanks for the wicked skateboard. It's pretty cool.
Sick. Good job.
Okay, we ready, guys?
I'm ready.
Alrighty.
Ready.
So a lot of this is just short little paragraphs, and then I'm hoping to get a bit of a discussion going. Like I said, this is just an introduction to Disney. I'll give you a little snippet of things, and then if the travelers want, I can dive deeper into all of it at a later date. But yeah, just kind of testing the waters here and giving you the surface.
Hey, travelers. Let us take this opportunity to thank everyone for watching the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
If you enjoy our shows, please subscribe to our channel right now.
And click on the bell so you can be notified every time a new video goes up.
Now, back to the Infinite Rabbit Hole.
The actress that voiced Snow White may have had her career ruined by Walt. At 18 years old, Adriana Caselotti auditioned for the part of Snow White. A year later, she received a call back and was casted as the princess we all know so well. Adriana was not only the voice, but was also the inspiration for the animator's character design. For all this, she was paid $20 a day, about $970 in total for the film, which would be about $20K today, and was not credited for her role in the 1937 film. At the time, it was customary that voice actors were not given credit, and in the case of Snow White, none of the actors were actually credited because Walt didn't want to spoil the illusion of the actors' voices. He was very particular about this, so much so that it is rumored that Adriana signed a contract that basically blacklisted her from acting. However, Disney didn't have any known contracted actors until 1946. Either way, she would forever be known only as Snow White. She actually tried to sue Walt for royalties, but unfortunately lost. Now, I said that she may have had her career ruined. Over the years, she worked closely with Walt, acting as Snow White for parades and promotional tours, going well into her 40s. She was only replaced because children started to notice and question how she was getting older. She tried opera, but ultimately had no success, and in 1994, she was the first female voice to be named as a Disney legend by the company. She absolutely loved and adored the character until her passing on January 18th of 1997. But where did Walt get the idea for Snow White? As I'm sure everyone knows, Walt adapted some of his movies from the stories written by Brothers Grimm. They wrote several stories that we all recognize today, including Snow White, Little Red Riding Hood, and many more. However, the original stories don't share the happy ending that we see in the movies. The original stories are much more, well, grim. Snow White was published in the first edition of the Grimm's Fairy Tales in 1812, and it's almost exactly how you remember it in the movies. The stepmother was threatened by Snow White's beauty, so she tried to kill her several times, finally thinking she had succeeded with the poison apple. However, many years later, a prince comes along and manages to wake Snow White up, and of course, they get married. Happily ever after, right? Yes and no. The original story ends with the evil queen showing up to the wedding and the prince making the evil queen dance herself to death in red-hot iron shoes. So Snow White may have gotten her happy ending, but not the greatest ending in general. Several of the Grimm fairy tales are like this, full of death and violence. In the story of Cinderella, the stepsisters did not fit the golden, not glass, slipper, so they cut off parts of their feet to fit in the shoes. When the prince finally figured out who really wore the shoe, they went on to get married, and the stepsisters' eyes were pecked out by two doves that watched over Cinderella before her marriage. So yeah, that's what I got on the Brothers Grimm story and Snow White there. Kind of morbid. What do you guys think?
Pretty dark. The original stories are pretty dark. I would much rather see those movies, I think, honestly. But
Me too. I only want one. I went and bought the Grimm's fairy tales just so I was familiar with these books or with these stories, and I got all my stories tabbed, as you can see. Snow
Fancy.
White, Little Red Riding Hood, Cinderella. They're all very morbid, very dark, violent stories. A lot of these stories have cases of incest and all sorts of stuff. Like, another thing with the Grimm's brothers, they didn't actually write these stories. They're just what's the word I'm looking for?
like folklore.
Yeah,
Like old,
it's
yeah.
they took different folklore and they adapted it into their own version of a book, essentially is what they did. And yeah, this is I think the 5th edition.
Well, it doesn't surprise me that Walt Disney would model his children's programming, right? The programming, with underlying, sinister motives and weird, like occult or morbid stories, right? Obviously, you don't notice it. You're a kid, whatever. But, I'm a big believer in the things that can be done with the subconscious mind, and especially like the MK Ultra stuff. So yeah, it's not surprising. Let's just say that.
and he did a lot of that. We get more into that here in a little bit, but he did a lot of that, and it wasn't just with Disney specific stuff. It's in all his shows, all the little offshoots, if all the Universal stuff. He was Disney's on top of that.
Yeah,
The
I've
Grimm
got some
fairy
other.
tales.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Jake.
Oh, I was gonna say the Grimm fairy tales ruined Disney for me. I mean, I was a pretty average kid growing up. You know, watched all the Disney movies and all that sort of stuff. I had my favorites. Actually, my favorite was the original Alice in Wonderland, like that acid trip like type Wonderland. You know, where it was just like they're playing croquet with the flamingos and stuff or whatever it was. Like it was, I loved it. I loved that movie. And when I got into like high school or whatever, I actually discovered the Grimm fairy tales, and I bought myself one, and it was like 20 different Grimm fairy tales. I don't know how many there are, but and it was illustrated and stuff. And reading the actual stories and you know where all the Disney movies kind of came from, it like ruined Disney movies for me because I was like, well, these aren't I hate to be one of those nerds that are like, oh, the book is so much better than the movies or whatever. But in this circumstance, it's 100% true because the original stories were so much better than that, washed up fairy tale, bull crap that Disney was peddling to kids. And I'm like, man, you should have shown them the original ones, because nowadays Disney movies, I mean, they have so many studios bought underneath them that I mean, they might as well just be doing all that sort of stuff. Like you see, what is it? The Maleficent movie, right? It's a little bit darker, and some of their live action stuff is more in tune with the original stories, and it's a little bit darker and stuff. And clearly, it's not for kids, right? It's not for kids in middle school and stuff. But even still, it's like, I mean, I dug the Grimm fairy tale versions, the original versions, before they were PG rated or G rated or whatever. And even that, and Jeff will tell you, and Kenzar, you've looked into it now, but even that PG or that G rating, we know today, from some of the symbolism and some of the subliminal messaging that was in our favorite Disney movies, that probably should have had a PG-13 R rating on it, whatever it was, because they were pumping so much crap into our brains that we had no idea, like Jeff was just saying. So, I mean, honestly, if they had stuck with the original and had, the evil stepsisters cutting off their toes and stuff like that and everything, or whatever it was, that it wouldn't have been even like half bad. Like the parents would have, attested to it right off the bat and be like, oh my gosh, gore and violence. But then later on, when they saw like all the sex references and the dildos everywhere and all that stuff, they would have been like, oh, well, par for the course, I guess, But yeah, getting into the Grimm fairy tales and seeing the originals and stuff, and how, to me, stories like that are way more of an art form, because it takes an incredible amount of imagination to come up with this stuff, even if it takes a very sinister, dark, disturbing twist. But oftentimes you'll find in your favorite types of art that really dark, heavy stuff that really like opens up your mind and causes you to ponder and think and stuff versus just seeing the surface level of things, is way more attractive to you. And so that was the case for me. And I think I've probably seen 5 Disney movies since then where I'm just like, it's like, oh, what's the original and stuff. I don't know. It just completely changed my mind over as far as like how I view Disney. Because I was like, oh, these aren't even original. They're just ripping them off and, slapping a PG label on them and calling them good and sending them out, It's like, what sort of imagination, do you need for that? Oh.
Yeah. Just for the record, this book has 201 stories in it.
Ooh, send it to me.
And
When
10
you're done.
legends. And it's just over 650 pages long.
Nice.
It's a big
That's
book.
awesome.
And it's just all short stories. And it's, of course, this had to be the opening cover. An owl. Everything is owls now. God dang.
Send me the link. I'll get it.
Yeah. I recommend it. It's cool to have, just to be able to say I have the Grimm's fairy tales and you want to go read the original Snow White, let's go do it. Like,
Yeah, here in
I
a
think
couple of
that's
years when I'm a
awesome.
dad, I'll read those to my kids, you know.
Exactly. There you go. Anything else? Ready to go to the next part? Okay. In 1991, Pixar announced that they would be partnering up with Disney to create movies. And in 1995, Pixar's first feature-length film was released. Toy Story is about a group of toys that seems to have the ability to come to life when the humans aren't looking. This is just the beginning of the puzzle. There is a theory that was developed by John Negroni that claims that all the movies share a timeline, starting with The Good Dinosaur, moving on to Brave, then The Incredibles, etc. I could list the whole thing, but that doesn't really matter much. What does matter is how both the animals and AI are becoming sentient and harnessing human emotion. As time goes on, you notice more and more that AI seems to be developing its own personality. We also see that the company, by and large, is in almost every single movie. They are a key factor to all of this, since they are the ones who are developing the AI in the first place. AI is harnessing human emotion, since the emotions are extremely powerful, something that is demonstrated in the movie Inside Out, and eventually the AI became human, so to speak, just like how the cars took on the personalities of their owners. During this time, BNL quite literally takes over the world. There's even rumor of them mentioning how there's no more governments in Wall-E. Eventually, humans come back to the Earth, which has been livable for quite some time. Proof of this in Bug's Life and Wall-E. And then humans end up thriving on the Earth once again. Other humans end up mutating and get singled out. And then we have a monster takeover. This leads to the monsters to rebel from typical human. Oh, sorry. This leads the monsters to rebel and the typical human disappears. But without that human emotion, they don't have renewable energy. So they develop time travel and use doors as portals to collect these emotions. Side note, there's also a theory that suggests the air and water quality wasn't quite up to par, which is why they mutated into monsters. The Pixar timeline has hidden messages of time travel, super soldier experiments, human experimenting in general, AI takeover, a new world order, adrenochrome, and much, much more. Who's to say they're not trying to condition us, knowing such things can very well happen one day? What do you guys think of that?
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I started with the Snow White and the Grimm story, because same idea, like Jeff was kind of saying earlier, they started trying to condition us with these movies, and now we're in Pixar and you literally see all these much bigger topics come up.
Yeah, they do, at least in my opinion. Sorry, I'm dying. In my opinion, they do a lot of what I consider predictive programming. And not just Disney. I mean, it's all over the place, right? Propaganda's everywhere, but especially Disney, because they are reaching out to like small minds that are still developing. But there's so much subliminal messaging in Disney films and movies, and like, I mean, so I say it all the time in my show, like they use the television for, it's like television programming. But if you break those words down, it's tell-I-vision programming, right? So it's literally like they're programming you through not just the propaganda itself, but the frequency of the music they put in the films and, everything, the color palettes, like all of that can be used to do various forms of mind control and subliminal programming and reprogramming. So I'm here for it, man. I already have a bunch of examples of this in my head, but I don't want to just say them in case you have them like ready to go. But if we get to the end and you haven't said some of the ones that I know of, then we're just gonna be like shooting down.
I mean, I go for it. Go for it.
Wes, put your
That's
hand
about
out.
as far as I get into like all the deep subliminal messaging there.
Well, I was just going to ask, what was it, Batman and Robin? Would that be a good example of what you're describing, Jeff?
As far as what?
The TV mind control. You've seen that movie, right? With the one with Two-Face and the Riddler, Jim
Yeah,
Carrey,
there's oh yeah, the one with Jim Carrey. Yeah,
Tommy
yeah,
Lee
yeah,
Jones.
Yeah. What part are you talking? Dude, I haven't seen that movie in like 20 years.
As soon as you start, describing what TV's doing to us, I instantly just start daydreaming about Batman. I think it was Batman and Robin. It had, I think it was Val Kilmer played Batman in that one.
Oh yeah, Val Kilmer, dude.
And Two-Face and the Riddler, they end up stealing this technology where through television they can basically take people's intelligence or whatever, I guess.
And the Riddler had like the broadcast station like on his island or someplace.
Stick the thing to their head and be like,
yeah, dude, 100%.
I thought more of like a Clockwork Orange, where they have the guy's eyes peeled open and they're like watching TV. And they're
well, it's like
brains getting sucked out.
The programming's done, like a lot of different things are done with the programming. Like on one hand, they might be actually injecting you with subliminal messages for you to hold on to for whatever reason, right? Say you can even go crazy with it. Say, oh, there's going to be a trigger word or something that happens later in your life, and it triggers like these subconscious things that have happened from watching these films.
Rutabaga.
But some of it is also them just telling you what they're doing, right? So like what you're talking about, that's more of like, hey, we're just going to let you know we're doing this kind of thing. We're just going to put it in this sci-fi movie so you think it's fake.
Well, in that one, in Clockwork Orange, they were forcing him, like he was a serial killer or whatever, maniac, whatever the hell, however they describe him. I forget. It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but they were forcing him to undergo that mental retraining or whatever. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Batman and Robin, the people are willingly doing it, but they just don't know exactly what it's doing to them,
Right. 100%.
Yeah, I don't personally have any issue with, was it the anthropomorphism? It's when you take human qualities, emotions, things like that, and attribute them to non-human entities. So talking cars, talking animals, things like that. I mean, the Grimm fairy tales, one of their fairy tales has a talking hedgehog man, or whatever. Yeah. That's just been going on for thousands of years for storytelling or using an animal or a thing to promote a message. Certainly it could be utilized as a the bright colors and like your favorite animal character of whatever show, talking about children here, getting them sucked into the programming and stuff, because honestly, and we're seeing that today. There's a lot of really iffy things, like should children be experiencing this or being taught this or told about these sorts of things, and they're being incorporated into every single show that they watch. And what children are more focused on is the bright colors, and this is my favorite hedgehog or duck or whatever it is that's talking and singing a funny song, or whatever it is, my favorite puppy. But what they're actually hearing, and what parents have been noticing now, is that what they're actually hearing is just garbage, right? Stuff that's way too mature for them. They don't need to be focused on this. We need to send our kids back outside to go play with sticks and hit each other in the face, and build character like that, or eat a handful of dirt, not being sucked into TV. Because I do agree that, although there's elements of it that aren't necessarily a bad thing because they've been used for storytelling for forever, the way it's being utilized is very sinister. And it's funny to me, because then I go back to my point in the first one, was that if they're pushing all this, why don't they just show death on TV? Why do they blur out certain things? Why is it that they, in some regards, they're like, oh no, well, can't do that, that'll be disturbing, and then in other ways it's like, well, what about this? But Yeah, it's interesting the way that they get you. And I mean, even like some of the shows I watched when I was a kid, same sort of a thing. The subliminal messages were there. As adults, we can go back. We can even see like the original Mickey Mouse cartoons, right? There's elements of racism in there. There's elements of sexism in there. There's a lot of vulgar humor. I don't recall, you know, remembering any of that or focusing on any of that when I was a kid. Obviously, I wasn't there for originals in like the 20s or 30s, but say like I watched a heck of a lot of Looney Tunes, a lot of Tom and Jerry. There was always someone smoking a cigar, getting drunk, violence, all sorts of stuff, right? And yeah, I mean, I thought it was funny. And whether it affected me or not, I honestly couldn't tell you because I only have this one life and people's experiences are different. So someone who didn't watch that stuff growing up, even if, they couldn't be comparable to me because our life experiences have been different, right? But we can look back at the cartoons, the movies, whatever we watched as kids and say like, oh my gosh, look at all this subliminal messaging they're just pumping into me. And maybe we can say that it didn't have an effect, and that's why things are being ramped up, because like, oh, we need to do a better job at this or whatever it is, right? Whatever the circumstance is. And we can see that in like you were saying in Wall-E, right? They're all in these chairs. They got this big screen in front of their face, and they're just being wheeling around, and they're all talking to each other on these screens and stuff. And Wally's in front of this guy, and he's trying to get his attention, but he's just talking to his friend on this screen, and it's right here in front of his face. And it's not until his chair flips over and he falls out that he's like, holy crap, and he sees everything and everybody, and he's just like looking around and stuff, and it like this whole new world he's never seen before because he's so obsessed with what's in front of him. And if you walk down the street today, what do you see? You see people walking around with their telephones in front of their faces. And I almost hit a guy the other day because he walked literally right in front of me in my truck, and he's like this, just walked right off the curb, and I slammed on my brakes in front of him. He didn't even look up when I did that. I don't know if he was wearing earbuds, but he was so obsessed with what was going on right here, I could have ended his life like that. And when I watched that movie, Wall-E, I think it came out quite some time ago too, I thought that was ridiculous. But here we are, right? You look around any sort of restaurant, everyone's just right here. It's right here in front of their faces, and it's completely absorbing them and all sorts of stuff. So it does appear to be that whether it's a subliminal message or not, or some sort of programming or not, it is in some way they're predicting the future, or at least predicting future behaviors that will be adapted. Now, are we going to destroy the earth and have a Wall-E type scenario and fill the, entire earth with trash and all that sort of stuff? I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
Not in
But,
our lifetime, at least.
well, I mean, I don't know, but
Yeah.
we'll,
Yeah, I think that what it is, I think it's the other way around, to be honest with you, because I think that the programming may not do a lot of the things. So I can get super conspiratorial, right? And I could say, oh, they're programming us for this and this and this, and I can of course tie it to some demonic entity or whatever, right? Like I can go that deep, but you don't even have to. I mean, Disney and things like Disney, they created such severe addictions to screens. Like they were one of the big catalysts for that. Because growing up, again, how many infants that can't even speak or move, they're just tied to a high chair while eating their cereal, like their mom puts on a Disney movie, right?
yeah.
It's
How do
so
parents calm down their kids nowadays? Oh, go find your
exactly.
tablet.
So
Go
the
find your cell
screen
phone.
itself is providing small infant children with all this dopamine and all these different chemicals that happen in the brain just from watching these shows that when we grow up, now look at us, we're in our 30s, we're in our 40s, right? And we're all addicted to the screen on some level. Whether
Can't
it's
get
your
our
phone,
dopamine high without your screen.
I would
exactly.
also like to
Nature doesn't do it
mention
anymore.
the biggest Disney fans that I have ever met are in their late 20s, early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even think we're necessary. I think Disney's continuously, I mean, they've been doing it since day one, but they're not just targeting young minds. They're targeting every single last one of us because they know how highly we hold Disney, most people, right? And like for some people I know, Disney is literally their entire world. Like they named their kids after Disney characters. They like their lives revolve around Disney. And they're not just targeting kids anymore, they're targeting everybody now. And I feel like they're especially trying to come at our generation, because what are they doing? They're going and remaking all the movies that we had and we loved. Why not come up with a new idea and make a new movie? Well, we can't, because pop culture's dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's done on purpose. Mind control takes repetitiveness, so you can't just mind control. You can't put somebody in a mind control chair in MK Ultra one time and then expect to have the programming last forever, right? So they of course they're not just focusing on our generation, but they'll never stop focusing on our generation, right? Of course they're
Yeah.
going to be focusing on the younger generation every time, but they'll always hold on to the first generation that really had like complete consumption of Disney, right? Until we're old and gone, right? But it also programs people to do a lot of other things. I mean, you can look at just like social status, for instance. Disney movies really put out that you have to be like this beautiful princess, right? Like the beautiful princess idea. And how many women now like have some weird complex where like they feel like they have to be this princess looking perfection all the time, right? With the makeup and the whatever
And you
do
know
what you want. But
I will vouch for that one too. Not so much anymore, but as a young teenager, I had a lot of insecurity issues, and I just wanted to be like Jessica Rabbit.
there you go.
That
That's
is
not
all
quite
I
a
wanted
Disney
to be,
princess, but-
was Jessica
insane.
Rabbit.
No way it would ever happen sort of proportions.
Yeah, like
I want my
and
guts to be
it
smashed
gives
into my
you-
chest cavity.
Yeah. A lot of people I know, they want to be Cinderella. They want to be Snow White. They want to be the princess. Like, yeah, Disney messes with people's minds on a extreme level. And I was saying this to a friend the other day. Disney is hands down the biggest bamboozle this world probably will ever see.
Mm-hmm.
Second.
Yeah, and even on the men's side, right? You had to either look like Prince Charming, or if you were some average person, you either had no face in like the old ones, or if you weren't white, you had no face, like in
And
the
that's
old Disney
another
cartoons,
problem.
right? A lot of racism. You're just a faceless person, or you're a hideous monster, and you have to win people over with the power of your personality, like the Hunchback, right?
And that's another problem
because you don't have a
from-
perfectly shaped chin, right?
Yeah, coming from like the whole princess end of it. Like, I wanted to be a princess, but I also wanted a Prince Charming. And of course they give you this very specific list of
Aryan.
this is what you're like, this is what Prince Charming looks like, this is what he's gonna do for you. Okay, now go find your Prince Charming. Well, the reality is you're never gonna find exactly that, right? And like, you
I'm
have
telling
this
your
image
husband.
in your head.
I'm calling him right now. I'm telling him. Telling your husband.
My husband is everything he needs to be. He's
good save. Good save.
He is
well done.
Perfect for me. I never said he was perfect for the world, though.
Oh, you're walking on thin ice again, Kenzar. I'm gonna have to text
Yeah,
him.
I know I am. He loves me though, and that's okay.
Did you let him out of the cave today to go outside and stretch?
Oh, sure.
The world's not ready for you yet, honey. We'll try again tomorrow.
Nah.
Maybe next year.
Maybe next
year. Oh boy.
I'll go change out your straw now.
Ready to move on? Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. 33 Royal Street is where the very secretive Club 33 is located. The club itself is known to the public, but to become a member, find good or recent pictures of the inside or what happens on the inside of the club is top secret. Modeled after the 1964 World's Fair, which featured 4 Disney exhibits, Walt wanted a place to allow executives and VIPs the chance to unwind and de-stress out of the public's eye. But where did the name Club 33 come from? Some say it's in reference to the 33 corporate sponsors Disney had at the time. Others think it's simply because of the address, which was given to the building in order for them to obtain a liquor license, since it's the only place in the park that sells liquor. But rumor has it It is actually in reference to Walt Disney being a 33rd degree Freemason. This is an interesting theory, but there is no evidence that Walt was actually a true Freemason, despite having other Masons confirm seeing Walt at lodge meetings. What we can confirm is that he was a member of the De Molay International Organization, which is a youth group founded in 1919 and is sponsored by local Masonic lodges. Being that the organization is funded by Masons, you can assume they have a lot of influence on how these young men grow up. When Disneyland first opened, they offered clubs for employees to join, including a Masonic club. And rumor has it, there is an old Masonic lodge that could be accessed through a door in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, but there's absolutely no proof of this. What we do know for a fact is that De Molay played a large part in Walt's life. He had a De Molay ring that he wore until he got married to his wife Lillian and attended several ceremonies held by the group. He even hired some fellow members to work for him. You can and will find Masonic symbolism everywhere in Disney movies, comics, shows, etc., especially those from the early years of the company. So I wanted to go farther into that, but I know nothing about Freemasonry, and that on its own can be a whole episode. Disney's involvement with Freemasonry and whatnot. So I didn't want to go too far into that and just talk out of my ass. I wanted to actually know something, but again, I don't want to create a whole new research project while I'm in the middle of a research project. So that's all you got for Freemasonry and Disney right now.
Fair enough. The Freemason stuff, though, is pretty interesting to me. And I've actually had to, so I've done deep dives on Freemasonry for, I don't even know, like 10 years, right? Just on and off. It interests the shit out of me. But a lot of people, especially in the conspiracy world, they'll just immediately blame Freemasons. And like, that's an easy cop out because that's just a fraternal order, right? So there's people that are Freemasons that are also part of other secret societies. So they use it's almost as if they use Freemasonry as like a scapegoat or like a social shield, a cover, right? Even though it's a secret society and everybody points at them, it's like a weird psyop type thing. So Walt Disney was part of like the Rosicrucian order, which he was actually really part of some
and
other yeah, you know what I'm saying? So like he was just in these other societies, but yeah, that's all really super interesting stuff. And the 33 gets deep. I should do a Freemason episode one day.
I was gonna go into the whole Rosicrucian thing and talk about all of that, but once again, I started getting into that and found myself diving down a completely other rabbit hole. That's a whole other research topic. So I left that one out completely because of that. Way too much to go about.
We're definitely going to have to pick those secret fraternities apart and stuff. You know, I have an interest in it. You have an interest in it. I'm sure Wes does too. So does Jeff. I mean, shoot, that sword that's hanging in that case behind me, that was my great grandfather's sword, and he was in the Oddfellows. And that's his ceremonial sword right there. So, I mean, and I was just like, oh, what's this all about and stuff.
Gasp.
So, you know, this is like, you know, there's things like that, you know, scattered throughout my family and stuff too. And I mean, I've known people that are Freemasons that are in like the Navy and stuff, you know, and they always kind of tell you the same thing. Oh, we're a group of guys that are helping to better each other, you know, similar to like this, you know, oh, we believe in God in this like sort of, you know, universal type, you know, form of God or whatever, you know, it's all very, you know, helpful and stuff to them. And, you know, honestly, when it comes to people that I meet that are Freemasons, I you know, I'll give it to you. There's some really good dang liars out there, right? And there's really good arguers out there, right? They'll argue their point, you know, until you're blue in the face, and then they just, as long as they yell over the top of you and then get you frustrated and say, okay, cool, well, great conversation. You know, I run into those sorts of people all the time. But I can't say, you know, these military members that I've met that are Freemasons that they're, you know, necessarily lying to me or that isn't what it is for them. But at the same time, I can't also say that these groups haven't been known to have their fingers into some really deep, gross stuff, right? So whether or not Walt Disney was a Freemason or wasn't, or was a part of another secret society or wasn't, the fact is that they have the symbolism all over the place. And when there was a time frame when I would see something like that and be like, oh, it must be some sort of a coincidence, maybe just a really cool symbol. But then you look at, when did this movie come out? When were these symbols adopted by this, X, Y, and Z society? When did that start up? All sorts of things. And you see that, well, it's way more than a coincidence. The reason why those symbols are in there isn't because it's a cool geometric shape. It's because someone that was making that movie had a hand in it and they wanted to input their own flair for whatever purpose. I don't know, maybe nefarious, maybe just like, hey, I'm going to throw this in there and maybe the editors won't see it. I don't know. But as we get deeper and deeper into it and as more creepy, gross stuff gets revealed, you really start to pull yourself away from that whole, like, giving people the benefit of the doubt and saying that someone's just like wanted to rep their stuff. Like I might tag a Infinite Rabbit Hole sticker on like a bus or something like that. I wouldn't, but let's use that as an example and say that, well, no, they're not doing that because they want to rep their group. They're doing that because this ties into that, ties into that, ties into that. And you can go into so many deep rabbit holes where it's just like you get into some just the gross, nasty stuff, right? And it's just like, okay, well, all this is intentional. I can't give people the benefit of the doubt when there's too much evidence towards the other side of it's intentional and it's for a reason. And it's because these people who were involved in this project were also involved in, say, Epstein's Island, or something like that, right? So it's like, okay, well, you got me.
There's a whole other theory there, and I left it out on purpose. But that's a whole, like, Disney is the biggest bamboozle. It has they have their hands in literally everything in this world.
It's hard to argue with that with all the studios and just multimedia companies they own nowadays.
Yeah, they literally own everything.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like if you're watching it
Damn
on
near.
TV, there's a good chance that either Disney, I was going to say Netflix, but like I wouldn't be surprised to find out that Disney owns Netflix.
They have their hands in Netflix. Yeah.
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 Yeah, dude.
Or at least a stake in them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Probably.
Is Disney part of the 13 families?
Walt Disney, no, but if I did, I guarantee, I would
I'm
bet.
sure there's some connection.
I would bet almost anything that if you follow his lineage back, whether it might be his dad, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, one of them somewhere down the line's last name is probably one of the 13 families. I would bet anything.
I wouldn't be surprised. Anything else? Or shall we move on?
I'm good.
It's all for a reason.
I'm trying not to just go off on the Freemason tangent, so please.
Okay. We'll move on then.
Okay.
Disney has always tried to send a message with their movies. However, I'm not talking about the be kind to everyone or don't pollute the world type messages. I'm talking more about subtle and unnoticed kinds of messages. Disney movies have all sorts of Illuminati symbolism, such as the pyramid or all-seeing eye. There's also specific spiral shapes, possibly linking these movies to sex trafficking rings. You can also see symbols such as the devil's horn, number 666, all of these carefully hidden in plain sight. It's all part of the deep state Illuminati, showing these things to us, possibly sending a message to someone that's in the know. All these people want is control, to have power, so they are the ones putting out the social medias. They love to give us the narrative that fits their needs and sprinkle in some truths along the way, hoping that no one sees what they're doing. Well, we see you, Disney. Look at a reflection of the name Mickey. Kinda looks like the word wicked. It's all right there under our noses. And to make matters worse, Disney was heavily involved with Warner Werner von Braun, who was one of the many Nazi Party members to be moved into the US for Operation Paperclip. Together, Disney and von Braun worked on films about space exploration for a television series, the first being called Man in Space. Man in Space aired Man in Space aired in March of 1955 with a total of 40 million people watching. It was about how a man could possibly travel into space and how rockets and satellites worked. The second movie, Man and the Moon, December of 1955, discussed lunar research, and von Braun himself even made an appearance to discuss a trip around the moon. Finally, December of 1957, Disney Studios released the final movie in the trilogy, Mars and Beyond, which discussed the idea of everyday life on other planets. President Eisenhower even called Disney asking for a copy of Man in Space to show military officers, which later led to a signing of the National Aeronautics and Space Act in 1958. With that, July 29th, 1958, NASA was established and von Braun was made director. The partnership between von Braun and Disney isn't the sole reason that NASA was created. However, it played a large role in getting Americans to be more on board with the idea of space travel, which then led to the creation of NASA and then the moon landing in 1969. But what about the moon landing? I came across a theory that suggested that Disney may have funded the moon landing, real or not. Would it really matter if we actually made it to the moon, though? Disney would have had the money and the technology to help film and produce something as large scale as the moon landing. Not to mention, Walt was in the middle of trying to expand into television. The moon landing would be an excellent way to get the broadcasting that you'd need. Another thing Disney has always been good at is marketing. Nothing owned by Disney goes without a hidden Mickey. And if you look hard enough, you will find a Mickey Mouse head hidden somewhere. Have you ever seen the hidden Mickey on the moon? The Mercury craters have been said to look like that oh-so-familiar Mickey Mouse head, leading people to theorize that maybe Disney owns the moon. Could make sense. If they had put enough funding into the moon landing and all that extras with it, perhaps Disney and von Braun had made a deal, allowing Walt to own the moon. Perhaps Disney and von Braun made a deal, allowing Walt to own and help broadcast the landing so as long as he got ownership of the moon in return. There we go.
Disney owning the moon, that's a stretch for me, even for me.
I mean, put a price on the moon.
I thought it was
$10.
interesting. Do I believe it? Not necessarily.
The moon can't do anything for you. It has no value except for what we assign to it. So what is the value of the moon? $5, $10?
This theory also expanded into claiming that he owned Mars and Pluto as well.
Well, because of the names.
Well, do you want my explanation for that? Because none of them exist, and it's just artwork designed, drawn up by Disney artists in their studios. So of course he owns them.
The planet and the character Pluto were found in the same year. That's about as much of a connection as I can give you there.
And then they said Pluto doesn't exist because it was going against the trademark.
Yeah, man. I don't know, dude. There's so much there that you just lay it on everybody. There's so much
that on its own is a whole episode. Again, I say this is just an introduction to Disney. I'm just scratching the surface. I'm just giving you that 10% of, not even, I'm giving you 2% of this iceberg. Like,
Jeff, go off, Jeff.
Do it.
I mean, there's just a lot there, dude. Like the Operation Paperclip, man, when we brought those Nazis over here, dude, and we put those scientists to work, we had them doing the craziest stuff that humans have done, right? Whether you're talking about starting NASA, whether you're talking about the MK projects or Project Stargate, like they were doing wild stuff, right? And
Disney
somehow Well, listen, I mean, look, dude, realistically, somehow Walt Disney finds himself in the middle of that circle of people, right? So he's buddy, like she said, with Werner von Braun, head Nazi scientist. Dude was sentenced to death at the Nuremberg trials,
At the
right?
beginning of Disney, he was there with him.
I don't
Yep.
know him. Well, he might have been. I don't know the full history between the two, but I know that the two of them, along with L. Ron Hubbard, the Scientology guy, and
Mhm.
Jack Parsons, who was an occultist for Aleister Crowley's Thelema, right? Like those guys started what we now know as NASA. They were the guys that were in charge of all of the propaganda and all of the other stuff, including NASA itself, because Werner von Braun was in their little circle. So yeah, dude, and Walt Disney, like I said, with the MK projects, right? Because there's not just MK Ultra. There's like a long list of MK projects, and a lot of those doctors and scientists were friends with Walt Disney. It's almost like Epstein. Like he was like another Epstein in a way, where he was somehow connected to everybody in all of the industries, top levels. Why?
I don't
Very
know,
popular.
but I don't know if I believe that there's this group of people who are controlling everything. I just, after having had worked for the government and seeing how terrible they are at doing anything, it's hard for me to believe that there's people within our all the world's governments that are somehow able to keep this under wraps and able to control all these different things, and at least to the scale that you're speculating about. But yeah,
Would you believe it if you read a CIA article talking about it?
I wouldn't necessarily believe that, because the CIA has done all kinds of crazy stuff, and then it was just like one part of the CIA that was doing it, and the other parts didn't even know about it. The
Yeah.
people that should have known about it didn't know about it. I mean,
Well, that's the
there's all
whole
kinds of things
point.
like that happening all the time.
That's
Yeah,
the
but
whole thing, right? Like, because I'm with you, man. Like the government sucks at stuff, dude. Like you give them money to do things and it doesn't get done right,
yeah,
right? So I'm
yeah.
with you there. But it's not the government, right? That's where a lot of
Well,
people,
I'm not saying it's the government. I'm saying the people that I'm sure, if there is such a group that is pulling the strings, so to speak, uh, there's going to be some of them in the government, that to have
sure.
influence over it. Um, but I just I don't. It just doesn't seem possible to me. You know, uh,
Sure. I think
humans
it's
have never been good at that.
mostly like black budget stuff, like it's nobody that we would know their name. Like that's my opinion on the whole thing. Like if you know their name, they're not part of the Illuminati. That's just it, right?
Well,
Even if you
yeah.
throw out names like Rockefeller, like still not part of the Illuminati,
Well,
right?
that's also
So
part of what I'm saying is, if I mean, there could be all these different small groups, right, that are hidden from everyone. No one knows their names except for the ones that are inside the circle. But I mean, they have, for them to have total world domination over all the media and everything like that. They have to be communicating, and we've the human race has never been great at keeping secrets. You know, shit always comes out.
unless they communicate through the symbols and the propaganda, and nobody even realizes it, and it has a subconscious effect on other people, right? So again, this programming works on everybody, including themselves
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent. So like if you knew what the symbol was, and you knew what it meant, right? Like you knew its real origins, and you even knew the color had a meaning and all the things. If you just knew that from your time on Earth, and then I put this very specific symbol in something, it's going to invoke thoughts and emotions in you because you know what it is, right?
Well,
So,
how are the other groups going to know what those symbols mean if they
well, I
don't?
don't. Yeah,
They
there's so
only
many
communicate through that.
groups. There's so many groups, and they're fighting amongst themselves. That's why they don't have full control. I think the thought that the Illuminati has full control is another psyop to make us feel like we have no control. In reality, they have almost no control. But what they do have control of is the entertainment and the propaganda. So it's easy for them to make us feel like they're in control, when in reality, it's like you said, totally unorganized, totally out of control. They get some things right here and there, and then they push the propaganda so hard on that it just throws the rest of us into the spiral of like, oh shit, these people are running the world.
I think we're getting to a place where that symbolism, I think it's going to go away soon, because people are so indoctrinated into whatever cult they're trying to push that they're not even hiding stuff anymore. So say like Kenzar said, Mickey looks like Wicked, right? Or Wicked looks like Mickey, one of the two, or whatever it was. Think about when like Walt Disney first started up, the Disney franchise. If you look back in history, people were, the nuclear family was pretty much the go-to, right? There was a mom and a dad, and there was some kids, and they had, the American dream of the white picket fence and all that stuff. I'm just going to single out America here. I know that there's all kinds of stuff going on all over the world, but just single out America. More people than now went to church every single Sunday, whether that meant for them, it meant anything to them on a personal level or not. This is just the statistics, is that more people went to church. People were generally happier with their jobs, generally happier with their lives. More conservative type values, right? There was definitely some bad stuff going on, when this had its start. Talk about racism again. That was a thing, right? There was a bunch of stuff, right? But generally speaking, people were a lot different then than we are now, right? So a lot of those things, the symbols and stuff needed to be there, and the subliminal messaging needed to be there, because otherwise it would have been shut down right away. They'd have been like, heck no. The invention of the TV comes out, and the first thing that comes on there is, some subliminal messaging and stuff. And it had to be hidden, and it had to be so secretive that, say this is child's programming. Well, dad didn't have time to watch his kids' shows because he has to go to work, right? Or he has to go get drafted into the war or whatever it is. So kids over there getting their brains sucked out by these shows and their programming and all kinds of stuff. Now we look at like right now, I mean, they're not hiding anything anymore. We have celebrities, on TMZ bragging about how they drink each other's blood for a freaking occult sacrifice, occult whatever ritual, and they're like, "Oh, it's just a little bit of blood." We have people,
Shut up, Wes.
rap artists.
No,
they're making,
no.
they're making Nike shoes with human blood on them that say 666, and it's all about the devil. It's all about this, that, and the other. It's not. They're not hiding anything anymore, and I think that we might come to a point where they're not going to be hiding it, because it's already being worshipped, and people are getting behind it and saying, "Oh, you're so like, oh my gosh, you're so breaking away from the norms and all sorts of stuff." And they worship these sorts of people, these people that just have the craziest lifestyles, that are so like, look at me, and way, way out there. And so we might see a phase here probably really soon where they're not going to need these sort of symbolisms anymore, because people are going to be so indoctrinated into this cult that they're going to be like, yes, worship Satan. Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's what I wanted this my whole life, is to just break away from, the way my parents structured my life and all kinds of stuff. And I just want to worship the devil. And that in itself isn't a stretch to say, if you just turn on the TV right now, just get off this episode, go turn on the TV, flip through the current news and stuff, see what people are doing, see what the music industry is doing, see what sort of lyrics are being promoted, see what movies are on, see what's in your kids, cartoon shows.
You don't even have to
all
do
of that stuff.
You could
is
just
in
go
there.
ask anybody If you go ask 20 people what they think about, just you could use any god, just religion in general. It doesn't have to be any particular religion. Guarantee you more than half of those people will just say it's absolutely fake.
Well, it's fake. They hate it. They hate God for various reasons or whatever it is. But it's just like, even just like in a non-religious sense, the most outlandish you can be, the craziest lifestyle you can have, the most break away from the norm sort of person you can be, is being worshipped these days. So I think that we're probably seeing less subliminal messaging and more in your face because they don't need it anymore, because they're not trying to trick people anymore, because they've gotten people obsessed with what they've been pushing for 60, 70 years, and it's worked, right? And so we're just going to keep devolving, and just they're going to break down societies like that. But what I will say is that that's just America, because if you go, the ability to be a sailor, right, and be able to go all around the world and stuff against my will, and Wes had this too, was that you go to other cultures around the world where they say, in Portugal, right, nudity on the beaches, and it's no big deal. Or South Korea, where you can be intoxicated in public, no big deal, as long as you don't start a fight or do something stupid or like hurt yourself or whatever it is, right? As long as you stay inside of certain boundaries and parameters, they have rules that would never be allowed, or at least not that I can foresee in America. Or, hey, here's nudity on a billboard in Europe, or here's, instead of over here where they blur out anything that has gore in it, they show that stuff, right?
Drinking limits, drinking ages is a
Right.
great
Drinking
example
ages,
of that.
smoking cannabis, things like that, right? So there's things that have been going on for just forever in these other countries. So as far as like that goes for them, I have no idea how that's going to affect them, because the things that people used to be shocked about in the United States was, oh my gosh, that cat was smoking a cigarette, they freak out about it. But that's been, allowed for forever over in Europe and all over the place, right? So I don't know how, what sort of levels this sort of propaganda is being pushed into the United States or into countries that are similar to the United States as far as their laws go, and what sort of traditional values look like in the United States versus other places like, I don't know, Asian countries, African countries, whatever, European countries. No idea. But I will say that I can see, just from my lifetime, the breakdown of society and how quickly it's changed. Some things for the better, some things for the worse. But I can also see in media, in just like, because I mean, we have YouTube. You could literally right now YouTube the very first Mickey Mouse cartoon that ever came out. Somehow someone put it on YouTube, and you can look at that and you can watch pretty much everything you could ever see on
Amazon
TV,
Prime
right?
currently has, they're not Disney branded, but it has Donald Duck as the thumbnail. You can watch wartime cartoons on Amazon Prime, and it's
Yeah.
all Disney propaganda is what it is.
Yeah.
Disney before Disney was Disney.
I mean, yeah, I can just say, for me, like, if I look at a cartoon that's being put out now, or a movie, or some song or whatever, and I take that and I sample it against something that I thought was very cool when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, my mom would have thrown the TV out the window. There's no way that would have been played in our household. And you can see that what society doing and what's going on in the media. And since we're looking at Disney, what's specifically going on with Disney, and now it's hard to even tell the difference because Disney buys everything up, right? They're like Walmart. They just destroy all the mom and pop stores and just suck them into the system and stuff, right? And they're like Amazon. I can get anything on Amazon. I don't need to even leave my house, right? They just take all this stuff and they suck it into their system and it becomes them. And Disney's doing that with at least most of the media, it seems. And they have their reaches into, when these Disney stars grow up and they become, whatever actors or whatever musicians or whatever it is, they have their feelers that follow them into that industry, and then they suck everything else into, so it's like, it's hard to see, where they begin and where they end. But yeah, it's crazy. It's so crazy.
Shall we move on though? We're about halfway through. I got a couple more smaller sections here, and then a big one, a fun one. You guys ready?
Let's get it.
Okay. Despite working so close with von Braun, Walt had a little side gig of his own, and I'm not talking about his involvement with the Freemasons. We're done with the Freemasons. It is said that Walt was an FBI informant. He was buddy-buddy with J. Edgar Hoover, after all. Who was J. Edgar Hoover, though? He was the top guy for the FBI. During this time, workers for Disney Studios were going on strike, demanding better pay, and Walt believed that the strikes had something to do with communist interference. So he paired up with Hoover to try and remove these people from the crowds and get his business back on track. Walt even called out an animator he had working for him, David Hilberman, and told the FBI that, quote, because he, David, had no religion and studied in Moscow, he must be a communist, end quote. Later on, there were even episodes of Mickey Mouse Club that were dedicated to the FBI. The relationship Walt had with all these people is very interesting, and who's to know what happened or had been said off the books. Now, I don't want to dive too deep into this, but Disney has been known for some not okay things like being a Nazi supporter, a racist, and a bit of a pedophile. In the early days of Disney, there were many products released that had some prejudice in them. For example, there was a book called Mickey Mouse and a Boy Named Thursday, which was about a young African boy who was shipped to Mickey's house in a banana package. Nice going, Disney. Over the years, especially recent years, many Disney employees have been arrested for their involvement in child sex trafficking rings. This all seems to get brushed under the carpets, though, and you really don't hear about any of these sort of things. And I'm sure we all know why. Can't ever ruin the Magic Kingdom for everyone with such terrible things, don't you know? So there was that. You guys got anything on that?
So I was right. Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
That's been happening for years.
yeah, all that stuff is
I know.
100% true, man. I mean, they, and like I have like a weird visceral reaction when I hear any of the Alphabet Soup boys, right? You give me a 3-letter agency and like I have this weird internal like
Cringe.
yeah, because I just know that they're all up to some weird shit that they shouldn't be doing, right? And it's just like, so I don't know, man. But yeah, all that stuff's real, dude. And like I said, man, I think that guy was like he was like another Epstein. Whether it was the same kind of honeypot or not, I don't know. But he was definitely like, a central cog in the machine of things.
I know this is like a crap on Disney episode, but just to play the side of the benefit of the doubt, right? Or the other side of a large corporation, any large corporation, name one, right? Disney, Walmart, Target, whatever, it doesn't matter. Someone in the high up gets nabbed for kiddie porn on their desktop or whatever it is, or they're caught doing some sort of sex trafficking ring, or they're drug trafficking or whatever it is, doesn't necessarily mean that the entire company is promoting and pushing that sort of stuff. So I will say that, but it certainly does seem like Disney's whole thing is promoting and pushing that sort of stuff. And it's but I don't know. It's like, it's hard to say. I think that we tend to look at these corporations as like a single entity, and anyone that's working for them is automatically some scumbag, nefarious creep, right? But that isn't necessarily the case. The janitor, I'm certain, at Disney has no clue about what's going on in corporate, right? They just are happy to have a job where I'm sure they get paid relatively well, right? Even some of the actors and stuff, I'm sure that they get paid relatively well, and they probably really do enjoy their jobs of being able to dress up and see kids smile and laugh and all that sort of stuff. So I don't think that, the whole system is corrupted. But I wonder how deep it goes and where its original start happened as far as like promoting and pushing this sort of stuff. Because like, we've all seen it, right? And we talked about this prior to this episode, was like, everyone's seen like the wiener on the Little Mermaid cover, right? At least until they took it down. Or the, when in The Lion King, when Simba lays down and the dust goes up and it spells out sex and stuff, right? That was available for people to see. What's up?
They actually came out and said that wasn't the word sex, that was actually SFX.
Yeah, I bet.
And it was a shout out to one of their departments. I read that and I laughed my ass off.
Yeah, just because someone says no,
liars.
that's untrue doesn't mean that it's untrue.
Yeah, I just, you said that though, and it made me, I wanted to share that because as I was reading that, I was laughing my ass off because all I could think was, what a bunch of fucking liars.
Right, and you see that with like, and when they were called out about it, like the cover of the Golden Castle on the cover of The Little Mermaid, when they were called out about it, instead of saying no, that's not what it's supposed to be, and leaving it at that, they quickly changed it. So if you can snatch yourself up an old VHS copy that has that, apparently they go for quite a bit of money these days, especially if they're still wrapped up. But they didn't deny it and say no, that's ridiculous, get your mind out of the gutter. They were like, oh, and they changed it, right? So at what point was this stuff starting to get promoted, and who was all involved in it? And it's easy to point at the guy at the very, very top, Walt Disney himself, and say, this is the start, this is where it all came from. But as we go deeper and deeper into this, because that's how I've always felt, was just like, well, I don't know if it was him, if it was design crew. One man with a massive worldwide corporation can't be controlling every single piece, right? But it certainly seems as if,
wife.
Well, I mean,
right? Like, could have been anybody.
It could have been, right? But as we get into this, it certainly seems that he must have known. You can't really play everything off as, oh, it was the times, that super, super duper horrible racist, movie or TV show or whatever you said it was, with the kid being shipped in the banana box.
That was a book.
Oh, book. There you go.
That was a book.
You can't always say, oh, well, it was just the times, because, my grandparents grew up in those times and they weren't racist, right?
Well, that doesn't mean that not everyone was racist. They could have been just an outlier, the exception to the rule. I was gonna say,
Right.
back then people were pretty fucking racist. I would go as far as say a majority of people, and so I could easily see that. For me, cartoons have always just been an exaggeration of what's happening in real life, at those times. And as you were talking about earlier, how all the Disney stuff that's been put out from the early stuff, that first Mickey Mouse cartoon all the way to now, it's just like representations of what's going on in the current times. To me, I've always just pictured that stuff as an exaggeration of what's already happening. So I don't know. I think it's a bit of a stretch that it's anything more than that.
So you don't think that there's like nefarious programming and stuff going on? You think that it's just pretty much a mirror?
I think the early stuff was legit. To say that that's not happening now at some level today it's everywhere. It's not just in anything Disney. It's in every movie, every TV show, even commercials, advertisements that we see for businesses or products on TV or wherever. There's little things that are, we may not consciously notice, but our subconscious catches it, and that forces our mind to remember whatever the hell it was. Movies have paid product placement and shit like that, but it's not always front and center. It's just something in the background or something that's at the corner of the screen that you see. Advertisements. If some of them, you look at them, there'll be a person in it that has like a sixth finger in one hand, or there's a third random arm coming from somewhere, or I don't know, some body part on a person's face is backwards, but you don't notice it at first glance. It's just, you see it for a second, and then that one little thing, your subconscious notice and forces your brain to remember it, so then you'll, next time you're out at the store or whatever, you'll subconsciously think about it and be like, oh, I want this,
I want this extra finger.
I definitely
Or
agree
this
with
product.
that. Yeah, I definitely agree with all that, but I still believe that it's more of society's more of a product of the programming rather than the programming being like a exaggeration of what society is and stuff like that. I don't know, because you could go back to like the 50s and the 60s, right? And like
Well,
Jake was saying, it was a totally different time and people had different set of values and the culture was different. And then as the propaganda kept getting pumped out more and more and more, you see a degradation in society. So
I mean, I wasn't saying that about every show or movie. I was just saying, the old Disney cartoons was just an exaggeration of what was happening
right.
in real life. And some of the stuff to this day that Disney's put out is an exaggeration of real life things, But and I'm not saying that that's not the case now, that media is controlling, brainwashing us, whereas back then it wasn't. Like, we agree on that. Today, the main objective that these corporations and everything want is for people to consume their product. Whether it's a TV show, it's a laundry detergent, clothing, whatever. Uh, nothing is built to last. They just want you to spend your money, buy their whatever it is, their product, and be happy with it. Without thinking twice about it.
Word.
We should have done this on Jeff's show so he didn't have to be so politically neutral and like be vague about who we're talking about. We could have just come out with it, just been like citing specific information.
To be fair, I bash all politics on my show.
That's right.
So
Yeah,
We could have
That's
gone
fine.
do.
Just,
all out.
yeah. I mean, I don't even. I imagine the majority of listeners, they're going to have in their head, like, us saying these things. They're going to already be thinking, oh, this company or whatever does it. They already
Sure.
They already know. A majority of people recognize that this is happening. It's just that most people are happy to just let it continue.
Because
they
it
don't
doesn't
think
affect them personally.
They think it's not affecting them personally.
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Non-religious from Moscow, definitely a communist.
Obviously.
Come on. Those are two of the two red flags.
Shall we move on? This is a big section, this next one.
do it.
And then, let's see. Yeah, this is the last section, but it's a big section. So, you
Send
guys
it.
ready?
Good luck.
Send
Don't
it.
mess up.
Okay.
Don't mess
Okay.
up.
Since the Disney parks first opened, there have been lots of unthinkable things that have taken place. Over the years, there have been many park goers that want to spread their loved ones' ashes on rides, specifically in the Haunted Mansion rides. Despite asking visitors not to do this, spreading ashes is a common thing that happens at the parks, and on a monthly basis, the employees have to call a code to have the ashes cleaned up safely and properly. If you're caught spreading ashes at Disney, you will be escorted from the property. They take this matter very seriously. Why is this a thing, though? I saw something that suggested people did this in hopes that their loved one's ghost would haunt the park, or at least whatever ride their ashes were spread at, and that they can forever be in the magical kingdom. I'm sure we all know that's not how it works, but there has been reports of hauntings over the years. There's been rumors of Pirates of the Caribbean being haunted, not only because they used real skeletons when the ride first opened, but also because of George the Welder. George was a welder that worked on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride during its construction. Some say he was crushed by a heavy sheet of metal, others claim he fell many stories and died upon impact. But what is for sure is today's ride operators must say good morning and good night to George every single day. If they don't, the ride will malfunction and have issues throughout the day. The pirates aren't the only ones who are haunted, though. Of course, the Haunted Mansion has to be haunted too, right? There are all sorts of ghost stories that have come from the ride, including a story that involves a young boy. Remember when I said that Disney was super against people spreading ashes in the park? Well, a mother did exactly that, spread the ashes of her son on the Haunted Mansion ride California, and since then, there have been stories of cast members hearing a young boy crying for his mother. Some even claim to see him next door at Pirates. Haunted Mansion, Florida is also said to be haunted. In 2004, a photo was shared of what looked like to be a young boy peering out from a doom buggy. The photographer claimed that there was no one in the area when she snapped the pic, and that there wasn't a child that young in the lineup in front of her. There have been so many different ghost stories to come out of the haunted mansions. Thankfully, the majority of them were made up by Imagineers to help aid the experience. Other attractions in the park that claim to have ghosts are Space Mountain, the Matterhorn, the monorail, and It's a Small World, and many others. Each of these rides have their own interesting ghost stories, and if you'd like to hear more about these stories, let me know. I can dive deep into them, and we can find out how haunted these parks actually are. One ghost story I can't leave out, though, is about Walt Disney himself. Many park goers and cast members have claimed that Walt's ghost roams the park. During the park's construction in early days, Walt and his wife Lillian had an apartment above the firehouse. Uncle Walt would like to light a lamp and leave it in the firehouse window so that people knew he was home. Walt passed on December 15th, 1966, but some claim he never really left the park or carried on. There's a story of a maintenance worker who claimed she turned off the lamp after cleaning the apartment. Locked up, she looked back and noticed that the lamp was still lit. Thinking she might have just forgotten, she went back up to put the lamp out. Locked up once again, looked back at the building and saw that the lamp was once again lit. For the third time, she went up to put the lamp out, but decided to hang out for a little bit to see what might happen. After a few moments, the lamp turned back on without her or anyone else touching it. She also claimed to hear someone say, "I'm still here." To this day, the lamp still burns as a symbol of Walt's presence in the park, and current cast members even claim to hear footsteps coming from above while in the fire station. The hauntings, for the most part, are all fun and games. Throughout the years, there have also been many deaths in the park, both parkgoers and employees. Of course, there have been natural deaths such as heart attacks, but I want to talk about a couple different stories that are a bit more tragic than the rest. In 1977, a 4-year-old boy climbed over the 2-foot fence to go swimming in the castle moat. It was too deep for the boy and he drowned. 2004, a cast member who was dressed up as Pluto was run over and crushed by the Beauty and the Beast float during the daily Disney parade. Other employees had to have a forklift in order to get the victim out from underneath the float. In 2009, a Disney monorail driver was killed when the monorail crashed into another stationary carriage, crushing the driver. He passed when authorities attempted to cut him out of the wreck. There have also been several suicides. In 1994, a 75-year-old man jumped from the 14th floor. Then from the same 14th floor, another man jumped again in 1966. There's a rumor that no one has ever been pronounced dead in the parks, and that Disney actually has a policy on this. However, this is exactly that. Nothing more than a rumor. There is no policy. A story that I really wanted to look into was the story of Debbie Stone. Deborah Stone was born June 18th, 1956 in Santa Ana, California, and was the first child of Bill and Marilyn Stone. Growing up, she excelled in both academics and athletics, graduated high school with honors, and enrolled at Iowa State University. In order to save up for her tuition, she wanted to get a summer job. And like any other teenager, she dreamed of working at Disney. Summer of 1974, she went ahead and applied for a job at Disneyland and soon was hired to be a hostess. She was assigned to work at the new America Sings attraction, which opened on June 29th, 1974. America Sings was replacing the Carousel of Progress and featured a 24-minute show with 4 big musical acts, all sang by animated animals. The show's master of ceremonies was an American bald eagle named Sam. It should be mentioned that the stages of the building could rotate. This allowed for the audience to experience the show in sequence. When the Carousel of Progress was functional, the stage rotated clockwise, which was away from the walls where the hostesses normally stood. When America Sings opened, they changed the direction of the stages so they rotated counterclockwise towards the wall. As a hostess, Debbie's job was to stand on the left side of the stage near the wall and greet the audience as they came and went. July 8th, Debbie was scheduled to work a night shift, but before she went to work, she called her parents to tell them she was engaged. Everyone was so happy for Debbie, and she was excited for the days to come. Later that night, around 10:30 p.m., the audience in the adjacent theater heard blood-curdling screams during the 45-second intervals as the stages were rotating. Debbie got stuck between the stationary wall and the rotating stage. No one is 100% sure as to how this happened, but it is believed she either stepped or tripped backwards or was trying to jump from the stage as it started to rotate and got caught. I want to read a quick article, or a little article that I came across. Girl employee killed at Disneyland. Summertime employee Deborah Gale Stone, 18, was crushed to death Monday night at Disneyland's new $6 million attraction, America Sings. The 5-foot 2-inch brunette was caught between a stationary and moving wall as an outer ring of 6 theaters rotated like a merry-go-round past a central fixed inner stage. The attraction, which opened June 29th, was closed indefinitely while Disneyland investigated how the accident, believed to be impossible, happened. Miss Stone's job was to greet audiences at the beginning of a 24-minute program and bid them goodbye at the end. She stood at the front on the left side of the stage and spoke through a microphone. She died at 11 p.m. during a 45-second interval when the audience had left her theater and it was moving into position to start a new cycle. Daniel Robson, 33, a member of the Air Force from Castle Air Force Base near Merced, was sitting with his family in the front row of an adjoining theater. He told investigators he looked to his right, saw what he thought was a child being pulled between the platform and the wall, and heard a scream. When the platform stopped, he said he notified operators. Miss Stone of 1633 Avalon Street, Santa Ana, was the first employee to be killed in an accident at Disneyland during its 19-year history. 4 visitors in the park have died from other incidents.
Happiest place on earth, huh?
Right? Isn't it?
Ghosts aren't real, but if they were, It's a Small World would definitely be haunted. That ride is creepy.
World is a whole other thing on its own too. I could that's the thing with this. Like I said, I'm just giving you the introduction to things. It's a Small World can probably be its own episode.
Jeff,
or like half an episode maybe. But
Jeff, what's the significance behind the number 14?
The number 14, I don't know.
Okay.
Probably nothing. It's probably nothing to it, to be honest with you. I mean, the day that Walt Disney died is interesting, though, because there's a 666 in that date. But, you know, who am I? I'm just a crazy conspiracy theorist. But I think that there's a lot to... I don't believe in ghosts either. However, I do believe that there is probably energies that can be invoked and or captured through various occult practices, right? So, you know, if you want me to get real conspiratorial about this, I would just say something like, I don't know, Disney has all this occult symbolism and propaganda, and, they use the 666 and all these different symbols all the time everywhere. So it doesn't surprise me that people are dying in the park and haunting it because their energies are trapped there. Maybe like some kind of battery, but I don't know. That's just a thought.
It's the battery to power the machines. Souls.
Something like that.
It's a giant soul gem.
Yeah, something like that. I just kind of made that up right now. So.
Dude, that freaking that dusting of the ashes is gross.
All I could think of was fucking grody.
That's nasty.
I was reading they have to call a HEPA code like 3-4 times a month.
I'm not even
It's
surprised.
gross. Like, it is just. I'm sorry, but if you are one of the people out there who have spread ashes at Disneyland, you're gross. You are nasty.
Yeah.
You are
Like,
gross.
what
You are
is
so gross?
What went through your head to think that that was okay?
You're a nasty, gross person.
Yes.
Do like everyone else and pick some river somewhere and throw them in there.
Right.
It's just gonna
Not
end up
the
in the trash
rides.
can anyways. The janitor's gonna sweep it up and put it in the trash can.
And that's another thing I read. They literally just come over, sweep it up. They have fancy guys that have the whole get up, like the monkey suit and everything.
Suck it into a shop vac.
Yep.
Throw it in a dumpster.
They vacuum it up and then just throw it in the dumpster.
Throw it in
your loved one
trays in Club 33.
You literally just made your loved one trash. Just saying. You were better off keeping those ashes to yourself.
Plant a tree with them.
Right?
Damn kids.
For sure. And I mean, there's so many people that go to Disney every year. So like people dying there, what are you gonna, I mean, it's expected, honestly, right? So many people in and out of there. Of course, you're gonna have freak accidents every once in a while. Again, I'm not really big on ghosts, but I mean, maybe stuff is haunted. I'm not convinced on the ghost thing, but I don't know, man.
All of the Disney parks have some sort of ghost story, and they all seem to be fairly original stories. It's not like George the Welder haunts every single like Pirates, right, or Haunted Mansion or whatever. But like they all have their own stories, but I don't know if I buy that they're all real, considering that majority of the stories from the Haunted Mansion are all just made up stories by Imagineers that work for the parks. What's stopping them from creating any sort of, for all we know, George the Welder is just another Imagineer story, right? Like,
or just people, really. I mean, I live in Florida. I've lived in Orlando my whole life, so going to Disney is like a normal, regular occurrence for the most. Maybe not now because I'm older, but it used to be all the time. We used to go to Disney all the time. And every time we would go, you go with the whole family and your cousins and shit, and a couple friends would come. And even we would make up shit. We'd be like, yeah, dude, did you know that in that one ride, that guy got decapitated in the ride? And everybody be like, what? Yeah. Like, and it's like, I'm just making this up right now, because I'm 12 and like, that's what you do.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those stories are just that too.
No way, dude.
Yeah. Don't stand up, dude. Keep your arms down, bro. You'll lose your arms like that one guy did.
Shoot, people do that now, like on a smaller level. When I'm on deployment, one of my favorite things to do when we're in River City, when you can't have communication coming in or out because of whatever operation is going on, they call it River City. I like to start a rumor in the galley that a certain actor died, and then see how fast it spreads. It's awesome. It'll happen in like a matter of hours.
The panic.
Someone from your shop will tell you that an actor died, and you'll be like, "Oh, nice," or whatever it is, or something like that. Right? It's something that everyone will talk about. You just pick something.
I would never believe that if someone spread a rumor like that.
Be like, because no one ever asked. They're like, "Well, how'd you get that information?" Be like, "Oh, the officer mess. We're talking about it.
A guy knows a guy.
God that knows a guy that knows a guy." That's wild. No, I feel for the people that have seen, that have been a witness to tragic events, whatever that may be. Because someone the first person rolled up on, those two people that killed themselves, right? That guy from Castle Air Force Base that heard that lady screaming while she was crushed in the machine. That sort of stuff sticks with you. I've seen some pretty terrible stuff so far in my almost 31 years, and sucks to say, at the end of my life, I may like forget who my wife is and who my kids are, but I have a hard time believing that I'll forget that stuff. So it stays with you because it's so out of the normal, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of sears its way into your brain. So I do feel for people that have been through that sort of stuff or have seen that or witnessed that or whatever. And I agree with what Jeff was saying. There's so many dang people that go to Disneyland and Disney World and all that stuff. You can't have something that's that big and not have someone have a heart attack every once in a while, that's there. Or, that there's somehow just immaculate safety measures and some accident doesn't happen every once in a while, whether that's a dismembering, a killing, or a whatever. Someone bumps their shin, something happens all the time, right? But that's just life. But yeah, I don't know. Don't believe in ghosts whatsoever. Small World is definitely haunted if they do exist. The dusting of the ashes is gross, real gross. Even though I don't even really know if there's any germs to be transferred because they're just it's ashes, but still the concept of it is
That was a
pretty
person
pretty
at one
gross.
point.
It's still gross.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Screwy.
If you knew about it. If you knew about it, it would put a way different thing than just be like, man, that ride was really dusty, just like, it's like got all
if
over
I
my
got off a
face
ride and somebody said that to me, I would probably throw up.
Well, now you know. Now you know. Now it would have been just like, oh, what's this weird layer of dust? Someone should have cleaned this up, and it gets all over your face and in your mouth and stuff. But now you know.
Why is it got to get in your mouth, bro?
Yeah, like
because
is that
we get
still
it.
considered
You're gonna be like,
cannibalism?
you're gonna be on the ride
rides move. Yeah, it
You just had to
sucks
throw the in your
Choking
mouth
on
part
Aunt
in.
Joan
Right.
over here.
lungs.
Yeah, because that's worst case scenario. That's why he said it, because that's worst case scenario.
Dude, I am a
But,
germaphobe. That would be the worst case scenario.
That
Like,
I'm not a germaphobe,
would-
and that would be worst case scenario.
I would
for me.
sue them. I would sue Disney and retire. So maybe, just maybe it'll happen to me, and then I'll be set for life. So
You need
Fingers
to start hitting up
crossed.
Disney on a regular basis.
fingers crossed.
You go in. It's a small world, and you come out looking like Tom Cruise from that War of the Worlds.
War of the
movie.
Worlds.
He's got all the people with dust all over him.
Dusted up.
Like,
Yeah. What are you covered in? And he like moves and it just all shakes off. Yeah, if
Or
you can
that-
sue McDonald's for hot coffee burning you, you can definitely sue Disney for
Yes.
someone's ashes getting caught in your throat.
Yep. Yeah.
Good luck, dude. Good luck suing Disney.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a legal team? I guarantee you Disney's legal team budget is probably more than everybody that listens to the show's annual income combined.
Well, of course.
I would say
That's only like what, 15
their
bucks?
lawyers make individually is more than that.
Yeah, probably. You're probably right. Yeah, one of those guys probably makes a couple mil easy.
Yep.
So start practicing law is what you're saying?
You can
Shady,
if you
dirty
want.
law.
Start riding It's a Small World and Space Mountain every day, and hope to get a mouthful of
Grandma.
people grandma dust. Grandma dust.
Man, dark, disturbing.
Gross.
I think the reason why we haven't done a missing 411 in a while is because all of our episodes become so dark and disturbing towards the end anyway. It's just like the audience is just getting their daily or their weekly dose of just like messed up crap. Bigfoot. There you go.
Bigfoot. There you go.
You're welcome.
Big dust.
You know, when I said Buddy was getting in his monkey suit, I was gonna make a joke and say getting his Bigfoot suit, not his monkey suit. But
Should have.
I should have.
should've.
I missed my opportunity.
Yeah.
We're deleting the whole episode now. It's done. It's trash.
Sorry,
Fucked it up.
guys. Start
Sorry.
over.
Was that all of
Sorry
it?
about that, eh? No, I have closing thoughts, and that's the end of Disney.
Closing thoughts. You want them now, or you got something? You go ahead.
I'll read my paragraph and then
You go right ahead.
Well, travelers, I hope you enjoyed this episode. When I started my research for this episode, I thought it was going to be a lot simpler than it really is. I would have loved to dive deeper into some more specific topics, such as Dear Uncle Walt's involvement with the FBI or Freemasonry. There's even big topics I didn't mention, such as Project Immortality. However, these topics on their own are just so big, all I could do for this episode was introduce them to you. If these topics interest you, let us know, and I can dive even further into the not so wonderful world of Disney. But for now, that's all I have for this topic. If you don't already, make sure you follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and join our Facebook. And of course, head on over to the website where you'll be able to find some wicked merch and leave us a voicemail. That's all I got for this episode. Anybody else?
I'm excited to get into like more specifics of all these topics, right? Because one of my favorite things is Disney and all the shenanigans and the occult research and stuff. So I'm stoked for that. I'm stoked for the, if you don't want to get into the Freemason stuff and attach it to Disney, maybe I'll do that in one episode. Definitely about it. Definitely about just going down the list of all the fucked up propaganda in all the kids' movies. Definitely going to do that too. So I'm stoked for those things. But it was good. I'm excited for this.
Thank you.
I'm just as excited for this as I am for the Giants series.
I only got one thing to say. Stop spreading grandma's dust all over the park. It's fucking
Unless
gross.
it's in Wes's mouth.
I agree.
Just throw it directly in my mouth.
Yeah.
A water balloon full of dust
Pocket
right
sand.
in your throat.
Pocket sand.
Buck sand.
Pocket ash.
Oh boy.
Bucket ash.
Yeah, no, Kenzar, you definitely pulled through with this episode. I was certainly worried in the very beginning that it was going to be the same recycled information, because generally when people talk about Disney and all the messed up stuff that Disney does, it's the same stuff over and over and over again, and no one seems to have any real deep dive type stuff. But yeah, no, I loved it. Definitely difficult to. We need to go over to Jeff's show so we don't have to be, obscuring names and companies and things like that. We can just come out with it, but
that's why I kind of walked around certain things. Like I said in there, I didn't want to touch too deep on this little subject, but I want to make y'all aware that this is here,
right?
Sort of thing, right?
And if you follow what Jeff does, he'll come right out with it and say that it doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, it's all the same thing, right? They all have their hands in the same honeypot. So, we'll stay politically neutral on this show. Jeff won't, on his show. But that's just kind of how we roll over here. But certainly, it seems that the Disney topic and why Disney's messed up and how Disney's messed up, and it just goes so deep in so many different things. So I'm also very excited to break into all the different areas and stuff. And it's you definitely came through really well with this episode. I think that I think that the listeners will really enjoy it, and if they don't, well, we're gonna do it anyway. So there.
That we are. It happens. So
Screw them.
And no more ashes.
Definitely no more ashes, please. We ask kindly. But yeah, that's all I got for today's episode.
Awesome.
I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. Not gonna lie, I was really worried about it because it was such a big... I thought, again, a lot smaller than it actually was. So I had no idea what I was actually getting myself into, but I'm really glad that you guys enjoyed this presentation that I had for you today. I had fun researching this, so...
You done good.
Well, thanks.
About that life.
Well, if that's everything, Thanks for joining us down this path of the infinite rabbit hole, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
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 Bye.